Feliz Navidad, mi amigos. ¿Cómo estás? Merry Christmas. Hope everybody's having a fantastic one. If you've already had your Christmas, Merry Christmas. So, what I wanted to talk to you guys about, kind of bring you guys back to old school. Remember when you were a kid and you're perused through the Sears catalog and you would have all the all the toy section in the back, and you'd always just go looking through it? Well, guess what? That's what we've got with the new direct connection catalog. Big shout out to Truck Rice for hooking me up, at least shoot me over this link. I wanted to talk about this with you guys, give you some of my opinions as far as what I think you're really gonna need with some of these stage kits. We're gonna go through this and I'll kind of give you my take on how this is kind of breaking down a little bit. So this is not really a first time for me to go through this. I've actually gone over this catalog quite a bit, but it's the first time that I'll be sharing with you guys my thoughts as we're going down the list. Michael Corleone is in. First up. What's up, brother? Got the flex. So we'll let a few more guys get in the talk or get in the chat, and I'll start talking about this stuff. One of the things, as we've got our early birds in, what I wanted to do is if you don't have access to the Mopar or the direct connection catalog, if you're in front of a computer, you got a computer sitting somewhere next to you, you can maybe find it already on the internet, but if not, I'll be showing screenshots. I'll spin this thing around and let you see what I'm looking at. But one of the first things that I wanted to do is show you guys something that I found personally hysterical. So here's what I want to show you guys. This is in the prologue of the catalog, and with this being the first catalog, there's a lot of prologue, a lot of history, and a lot of things like that they're going to flex on. But here's what I want to show you guys, and this is just a little bit of flavor for my old school brethren out there. Tips on parts for the Hemi engine bracket racer. And again, this is going to show some old school pages here. For your 426 Hemi engine, 13-second bracket car or 12-second bracket car. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. That's this one right here. Little old school right there. And of course, it's right next to the, how to build your 10 or 9-second modern Hemi. But I just found that to be hysterical. The only reason being that, I figured with the 426, right, with all the legend baiting and everything else that you see, if you put a 426 in a Mack truck, it should run 13s or 12s, right? So anyway, not that it's a little bit of a nudge or a rub, but I found that to be kind of funny. But taking the humor out of it, that is really what the Mopar, or in this case, the direct connection by Mopar catalog can get you. It's the tips, it's the tricks, it's the how-to, it's the knowledge base that you're really looking at with these catalogs. So getting through the prologue section of this thing, I want to go ahead and dive right into it. So let me make sure I haven't missed anybody on the intro, and then I want to dive into this for you guys. DM, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Thank you so very much. Keegan said, I got a 72C10 with a 400 small block for Christmas. Congrats. I've got a 72C20 with a 400 small block. I love it. Good deal. If you need any tips on tuning an Edelbrock carburetor, I got a couple of videos on that. Michael Corleone is first in. Roy is in. Say Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to everybody. Keenan is in. Merry Christmas to you. Catalyst, Merry Christmas to you. DM, again, got the flex, got the tree. I like it. Merry Christmas, guys. Appreciate it. So let's dive in, gents. Again, DM, thank you very much, brother. The first thing you run into with this catalog is going to be the crate engines. And of course, if you guys are wondering, yes, the Elephant is in. So let me get into that first. I don't want to really pass up anything but I also don't want to lay into too much also. But in here, you'll find a 392, you'll find the 5.7, you'll find the Elephant crate motor and the Hellcat crate motors all listed up for offer. For you guys that are wondering, if you've forgotten anyway, the Elephant, which is an aluminum block, some will argue that creates its own issues, but it's a $30,000 option, with the supercharged 6.2 liter Hemi being an $18,000 option, basically, without taxes. Your Redeye variant will come in at $21,000 roughly. And then we get into the 5.7s, the 392s and the like, obviously significantly less expensive. Now, what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to pass up some of the swap products that are in here, primarily because, I mean, unless you're into doing swaps, this stuff really isn't going to help you. One of the funnier things about this, though, is the drag pack engine offer. Look at that bad boy. That's pretty sick. Comes with all kinds of fun goodies, included but not limited to a 3-liter Whipple, 109mm throttle body, American Racing headers. Not a whole lot of details, but some. I believe it's a 645 lift cam is what they were showing on this. Set up to run on C16. One of the funnier things about this, though, is the $56,995 price tag to get your hands on one of the things. So for you guys that are wondering, well, how much horsepower is it rated at? It's listed and shown to be rated at 630 horsepower, but it also goes in to say that NHRA mandates engine factored horsepower rating for vehicles that compete within specific NHRA sanctioned classes. This is to achieve parity within each race class and does not represent actual engine output capability. Guys, to give you an idea, you can double that 630 horsepower and then add some more to it. That is a nasty engine combination. Obviously, race gas only would probably not be the right viable product for you on the street, considering it is a, for all intents and purposes, after tax, it's about a $60,000 engine package. So let's get into this. So guys, for the modern stuff, one thing I want to bring to y'all's attention to is the Dodge 1320 Club. Basically, if you want to share your successes on the drag strip, you can get involved with the 1320 Club at your DodgeGarage.com. You've got to have a copy of your time slip. No draggies are going to be allowed on this. It has to be a drag race specific time slip, meaning a drag venue specific, more to the point. Quarter miles ranging 780 to 1390. They're going to have to rewrite that after January when Z cracks that 780 barrier. 60-foot time of 11 to 20. Quarter mile speed of 105 to 170. Basically, this is a way for you to get on to the DodgeGarage.com, create an account. This way you can share your successes and kind of see where you, basically where you fall in line with your fellow Mopar enthusiasts. Now then, for the stuff that matters probably most to us, for you old schoolers, you guys know where to find parts. But starting on page, well, basically page 40. This is what the page looks like. Modern performance. There you go. Page 40. We've got brakes, drivetrain, engine parts, exhaust, interior, intake and air, interior accessories, suspension, and wheels. Sounds like there's a lot to go over. Let's dive in a little bit. So, right off the bat, you've got some brake options, but these are not necessarily for SRT, Hellcat type variants. These are really more for the 5.7 guys and the 300 guys. But the main thing I want you guys to look at for you Hellcat guys is going to be the Redeye torque converter right there. Get that nice and close for you. And at some point coming back, if you need to do a snapshot, you can go back and just pause that. But I'll give you the real quick because there's nothing on it. High stall torque converter for 15 and up Hellcat models with HP 90 auto transmission. It is HP 90 specific, guys. This will not work in an HP 70. This converter not only allows for a higher stall speed than the stock Hellcat torque converter, it also provides higher torque multiplication for harder launches and lower ETs. 2.0 torque multiplication factor includes installation hardware. So this is where we start talking about performance, and this is where I give you my 2 cents on, is it going to be worth it? What do you have to change in the tune? Are there differences in the tune between Redeye and Hellcat? Because Hellcat guys might be thinking about putting Redeye parts. What'll you have to do? Well, let me put it to you like this. Will the torque converter be a game changer for your Hellcat? Not really. What I've seen with my car is 309 gear for 309 gear with as little as I have in my tune. The difference in the 60 foot, which is what this torque converter is advertising to improve upon, can be explained with the fact that the 2.7 versus the 2.4 supercharger that the Redeye has, in this case 2.7, larger, more down low torque, those cars 60 foot better. Now, I get it. You guys may say, well, yeah, but it's also the Demon torque converter and all this other stuff. Yeah, maybe, but let me just put it to you this way. If you're foot braking the car, between the two, it's not going to make a huge bit of difference. The Redeyes do make more power down low. They get out of the hole a little bit faster. That's just the nature of having a larger supercharger. What about tuning for this particular torque converter? Will there be any differences? Well, I can tell you this, guys. In the tune itself, there are very few cells that are really any different at high torque loads and high RPM especially, but primarily at high torque loads and higher RPM loads, they're all basically the same. There are some differences, but not any real huge differences. However, I do know of a few cells that, a few tables that those cells are looking like they're a little bit more aggressive. I would say if you put one of these things in your car, would you see much of a difference? Maybe, maybe not. I don't see it making a huge difference. I can tell you that from my personal experience, a Hellcat with a 309 gear, very difficult to mess with, just leaving everything alone in the tune. So if you're thinking about getting it, kind of tough to say. Oh, also don't forget 2.7 liter supercharger makes more power down low, which would mean that the same supercharger is still going to flash to a higher RPM. That's how torque converters work. Bigger supercharger, more torque down low. Same torque converter, it will flash to a higher RPM. So again, I'm a little bit on the fence with this. Is it better? I don't know. If it is better, I haven't seen it necessarily translate to the drag strip. Now, here's something that I really want to hit home for you guys. And again, we're starting out with the Hellcat stuff primarily because that's what this catalog is heavy on, is the Hellcat variant. So, Redeye Driveshaft is now available. There you go. As well are the half shafts. Notice you can also get the Redeye 309 gear. Technically, no tuning required, although I will tell you that you will lose some throttle response or at least boost response because the load is going to be less at any given foot position. Probably going to want to go with a pedal commander if you get that 309 gear. Now then, let's talk about the Redeye Driveshaft. $1,695 list. And you might go, my God, that's a lot of money. It is, until you get an aftermarket drive shaft that vibrates and drives you absolutely crazy. You will be more than happy to cough up the extra $600 that it's going to take to put a Redeye Driveshaft in your car, because they are silky smooth. And in this case, guys, don't worry about the weight. I went back to back Redeye Driveshaft versus Aftermarket Driveshaft in my car with absolutely zero difference in 60-foot time, quarter-mile time, eighth-mile time. None of it changed by having the Redeye Driveshaft, which is the same as the Demon, which is the heaviest of all of the offerings. Made absolutely no difference. Silky smooth to whatever speed you want to drive the car to at $1,695 for you guys with a 2015, 2016 Hellcat. If you're taking the car to the drag strip a lot, if you're worried about your drive shaft, spend the extra money and get this drive shaft installed in your car. Super easy install, bam, 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 and you're done. Well, it's not really quite bam, bam, bam. It's got to remove your exhaust, but still, I've done this job a dozen times at least. Well worth it. Now then, Redeye 41 spline half shafts. Is that worth it? Well, if you've got a Scat Pack rear end, by the way, you can run these half shafts in your car, no problem. We're doing that right now. Here's the thing though, they will handle more torque. They'll handle a little bit more abuse. The kit together, drive shaft and half shaft, are basically, if the catalog is showing 770 foot-pounds of torque, I know for a fact they'll handle way more than that. Definitely something to look at. They will absolutely handle the abuse. My opinion, best value in here is the Redeye Driveshaft for you guys, especially with the 15 and 16 year cars. They have a thin wall drive shaft, known for getting twisted up if they spent way too much time on a drag strip or got hit with a lot of wheel hop. Quick note though, guys, that drive shaft will not work for an HP 70 transmission. That would be the NA guys. The HP 70 is just a little bit shorter, and these are not slip joint shafts, so that will not work for your HP 70. By the way, you can get the Redeye rear diff also. Now, I was showing that earlier. Here's the thing though, we've been running the Scat Pack 309s in all of even the highest horsepower applications with zero issues whatsoever. So they're all pretty butch. And they're real stout coming from the factory. So from there, we start to get into these stage kits, these Redeye stage kits. Now, before I get into the stage kits, I want to catch up with you guys real quick, and I'm going to dive right back in the middle of this. So if you guys got questions, I'll try to get to them after I get through going over the different menu items that are in this catalog for y'all. Shane saying, Merry Christmas, Mopar Nation. Merry Christmas, Shane. Hope Santa brought everything you wanted as well. Mr. Blacktop saying, Merry Christmas, B. How much horsepower can I get out of the Joker package on an RT? And is there a Joker package for the 392? There's really not a Joker package for the 392, although I do have a cam that works really well for the 392. It's my Warlock grind. Definitely worth a look. The Joker package, full kit in an RT, man, it depends on what dyno you're on, quite honestly. I've seen some pretty obnoxious numbers. Sometimes I question the dyno figures themselves. Here's what I'll tell you. It will be just south of what a 392 will put down stock. It will sound amazing. And of course, with the headers and everything else that you'll put on the car, it's going to run really, really well. If again, you're looking for numbers, I just don't like quoting numbers because I've seen numbers scattered all over the place. On a Mustang dyno, 375, 380, maybe. On a dyno jets range all over the place because you've got some that are eddy current, some that are 248C, which are the old drum style. I don't know. I know of one truck with a Joker that on a very optimistic dyno put down close to or right at 400 horsepower. I wouldn't expect that. But I will tell you this. If you get a hold of Justin over at Dr. Differential, he can give you anecdotal evidence of what kind of power it puts down. I know that it walks away from LS3 Camaros, the Gen 5 Camaros. He's got a video of him running an LS3 with that car and with a manual transmission car. And I mean, it's not like the thing's just bouncing the LS3, but I mean, he's tiptoeing away from it. So it's a significant power bump, if nothing else. Sean saying, Merry Christmas, Sean. Chuck Sam, what's up? Man of the moment. I like it. Thank you, sir. I had mentioned Chuck earlier on the intro. Chuck's the one that got me this link to the catalog. Thank you, buddy. Anthony is in. What's up, buddy? Merry Christmas. Cody saying a Redeye 309 gear and a 5.7 with a Maggie would be a nasty daily car. That would be a blast to drive, by the way. So, not to get too far off topic, but one of my favorite cars to drive is a 309 geared Maggie topped 5.7. It is a lot of fun. Like it's like having a 392 with just a little bit more grunt down low and on tip end, if you can even believe that, because 392s are real snappy. But there's a difference between being snappy and having that grunt to go along with it. And there's this point at about half throttle with that car, which is just so much fun. But really fun car to drive. Another one is if you found like a 2013, 2014, or any of them really for that matter, but the manual cars. I drove a 2013 or 14 5.7 with a 6-speed with a Maggie, and it was a really neat experience. Eric saying, good evening, Professor B. I'm late to the party tonight. Merry Christmas to everybody. Got the flex. I like it. Actually, you're not late. I'm early. Chuck saying, smash that like button. Yes. Give it the people's elbow. Donald saying, good evening, Mr. B, and Merry Christmas to all. Same to you, Donald. Cal saying, so is it any of the one-piece drive shafts, carbon fiber, aluminum, that cause the vibration? So here's the problem. And that's a good question. I really could go into that, or should go into that. The problem is when you look underneath the car, I'm going to use my hands as kind of a reference. The drive shaft actually kicks like this. It comes out of the engine straight, and then it kicks over a little bit at the joint going to the rear end. What happens is if you have a CV joint on one end and a U joint on the other, you would think that it would kind of balance itself out, and it doesn't. For whatever reason, having the U joint there, it creates a harmonic. And if you've got a 309 gear, it's really bad because it starts at like 78 miles an hour. And it progressively gets worse and worse. It starts to turn into like a feedback loop to where at 91, 92, 93 miles an hour, you're like, dude, I can't even be in the throttle anymore. Now, if you're at the drag strip and you're making a blast in the car, maybe you do, maybe you don't notice this. I am bad about being sensitive to NVH stuff like that. I've known guys that have had the drive shaft, they put it on their car, they run around on a drag pack, they really don't think much of it because there's like, they expect a certain inherent amount of imbalance with that system, meaning drag pack, wheel and tire setup. That's not ever the case. Any vibration is not good. And with the U joints, it just is bad. Guys, I'm telling you, I've tried multiple manufacturers of drive shaft and have never come away in a good place. Doesn't matter if it was carbon fiber, aluminum, whatever. In this case, because it is not a slip shaft and you're more or less kind of locking the thing in place, here's the issue. Even with CV joints, you don't have a slip shaft. You're relying on basically the ability of the drive shaft to alter itself a little bit based on the differential actually moving. I know I'm getting a little bit too kind of nerdy with you guys, but I need to explain this. So, especially in some cases under load, even though you have an independent rear suspension, your rear differential still rocks. That pinion is still going to try to climb the ring gear, which causes that thing to rock a little bit. And even if you have a diff brace, that's no guarantee that you're not going to get the thing to rock up a little bit. That's why I tell guys, do not roll into your diff brace bolts with a whole lot of risk. Just get the thing to set, because that diff still needs to be able to move just a little bit when it comes under load. If not, you could strip the bolts right out of underneath the ears of that thing. Long story short, the problem is that instead of the diff looking at the transmission just like this, now you've got one side that's coming up, but since it's not a slip shaft, the shaft itself doesn't move, it just comes up. So now this angle is way off from this angle, and it's going to create an MVH issue. So that's the reason why you run into these problems. Now, the later DSS drive shaft with the twin CV joints does a lot to combat that. And my understanding is that that's a really good drive shaft, but the Redeye Driveshaft is amazing when it comes to being buttery, silky, super smooth. So I say, Mayor Mopar and a happy 309 gear. I like it. So guys, let's get back into it. I'm going to start off with some lower hanging fruit for you guys. I want to talk to you about the Redeye packages first. Those are the ones that you hear the most about. And those are the ones that I'm going to start with, but I'm going to move very quickly into the Hellcat pre-stage and stage kits. So, Redeye pre-stage kit. Oh, and by the way, there are some misprints, and this is not a final version, I don't think, of this catalog. So there are misprints. And there's a little bit of what I would call accidental misdirection. I'll walk you through some of those as I run across them. A couple of them are coming to mind, but we're not quite there yet, so I'm going to hold off on that. So the Redeye pre-stage kit and then the stage kits. This is what those look like in the catalog. So you got the pre-stage kit, which you have to have, and then you've got your stage kit 1 and stage 2. That pulley, by the way, is a 317 pulley. You would know that better by its trade name on the aftermarket side is Hellraiser. It's the uncoupling pulley. So, getting into this, what do you get for your pre-stage kit? Basically, it's your tuner kit. Let's see, factory tuned calibration for increased engine performance. 50 state legal, performance air filter, 180 degree thermostat, which is kind of important because you have to have the tune revised to run 180 degree thermostat without it throwing a check engine light. One of the things, I think this is a bit of an accidental misdirection. It says factory tuned calibration with 5 degree spark advance. I really don't know what that's trying to allude to, because I know for a fact in the tune, you would never throw 5 degrees at the factory tune. You'd be way outside of what normal gasoline would be able to get you. And this is before we start talking about race gas calibrations. So with all this, you get a full color, high def, 5-inch touchscreen. Basically, it's a newer version of the Trinity is what it looks like. One touch menu just kind of gives you some, hey, this is what it does. These are the blurbs that it does. Anyway, long story short, that's coming in at basically $1,200. You have to have this done before you can do anything to the car. Now, for your first stage, your stage 1 kit, this is the kit that does not have a pulley. This is just the tune. Factory tune, the calibration for engine performance up to 840 horsepower, 770 foot-pounds of torque. This enables the high octane functionability and the high performance calibration key code, which unlocks the stage 1 calibration. That's $395. Now, let me put it to you in these terms. If you were to just stop right there, you would be into this thing for basically $1,200 plus $400. You're looking at $1,600, and you would have a tuned Redeye that would still keep the factory warranty. Again, you're looking at a bump from 807 horsepower to 840 horsepower, so 33 horsepower within that tune. Not bad. Plus, I'm sure they do a lot more things within the tune there. Driver demand, torque, things like that. Now we get into the Stage 2. This is where things get a little bit interesting. And for another $1,200, so $1,200 and $1,200 gives you your $2,400, plus your $400 puts you right at $2,800. That $2,800 all in will get you up to 885 horsepower and 787 pound-feet of torque, but that is going to require you to be running race gas. So it is going to neuter your tune with the extra 2 pounds of boost. It's going to neuter your tune basically. And it's going to drag you down to 837 horsepower. And you might go, well, wait a minute. 837 is less than 840 that you get with Stage 1, but I've got a pulley on the car. Exactly. So this is what I wanted to explain to you guys. Yes, the Stage 1 technically will make more horsepower than the Stage 2 with 91 octane gasoline. You can also read into that 93 octane. The reason for that is because when you put the smaller pulley on that supercharger, you're generating more boost, but you're generating more heat. You're generating more cylinder pressure, which also means you're going to be coming up way into and past actually your knock threshold for 93 octane. So what they're doing is they are neutering the tune quite a bit for pump gas, with the understanding that you're buying the pulley kit to run the race gas calibration in the car. That's what bumps it back up to 885 horsepower. So yes, if you're just going to run 91 octane, don't get the Stage 2 kit. Get the Stage 1 kit. If you plan on running race gas, well, then you're going to want to run with that Stage 2 kit. So to review, stock pulley, pre-stage, which you have to have no matter what, which gets you the filter and the thermostat and everything else, that plus $400, so $1,600 gets the car basically another 30 odd horsepower. If you want to run race gas with the pulleyed combination Stage 2. It is going to be neutered a lot for 91 octane, but he will get the extra horsepower when you're on the higher octane tune. So hopefully that answers some questions and sheds a little bit of light for you guys on the Redeye. I will tell you this, the Redeye is a much easier platform to just throw pulley at and to just say, yeah, you can run race gas. It's got twin pumps, a bigger supercharger. It's kind of set up that way. It's just a more robust, from a fuel delivery standpoint, it's got bigger injectors. You can just throw this stuff on the car, and it's a fairly easy calibration to put together and let her rip. Yes, there will be a ton of nannies still in place. Torque management still very much in place. All of your heat range settings are still going to be in place. Your knock sensor sensitivity, believe that it's still going to all be in place. And at the factory ratings. So is it going to be as hot as an aftermarket tune? No, but that's not why you're looking at it. You're looking at it because you can retain your factory warranty and realistically have a car that is just simply more responsive all over the place. So now then, guys, we're going to talk about the Hellcat stuff. Here we go. Yes, there are Hellcat stage kits, but you've got to be careful because this is where I think that there's an accidental misdirection. Let me explain to you what I'm talking about. and I say that because there's no difference in the actual platforms themselves from 15 on up. Anyway, Hellcat pre-stage kit for your 2019 plus 6.2 Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat, and exclusive to direct connection. This Wi-Fi enabled device allows you to upgrade your engine calibration at the touch of a button. Notice that I said for 2019 plus 15.62. Now, if you go down to the bottom of the blurb here, it says application 2015 and up, Dodge Challenger Hellcat. I'm going to show you that right here. That's in black. So look at the very top where it says for 2019. Then you look down here, it says application 15 and up. I think that the application itself, what they're talking about is they may be talking about like the filter, for example, is for a 19 and up because it uses a different box or a different air intake system than what you would find in a 15, 16, or 17 or 18. So here's the thing. It goes back into the mix of the tchotchkes and baubles that it comes with. You get the controller, you get the thermostat, and with all of that, you've got MDS active management options, which is weird because cars don't have MDS. See what I mean? Again, we're talking about something that is a little bit of an accidental misdirection or maybe a misprint. But it tells you some of the things you can change with it. Anyway, that's what the Hellcat pre-stage kit gets you. And again, that's going to be a $1,200 deal. Basically what it is, it's the equivalent of, you're just unlocking the computer at that point. But you do get the calibration. So let's talk about that. Factory tuned calibration for increased engine performance to 722 horsepower and 656 foot-pounds of torque. That is to say that it doesn't increase it anything. The thing is rated at 717. Now, if there's more driver command torque built into the thing, yes, obviously you've got this contraption that you can data log and do a lot of neat things with, but there's really nothing in the pre-stage kit, not like there is in the other kit for the Redeye. You're really not collecting any horsepower with this particular kit, but you need it to move on to the next step, which would be, again, the Stage 1 kit for the Hellcat. The Stage 1 kit is the pulley. So you come back in with a 317 pulley. Oh, right there. So again, you can go back and pause that if you need to, if you don't already have your copy yet of the catalog. And this is going to check in at $895. What does that get you? Well, you get the, the factory tune calibration for increased performance to 757 horsepower. Again, using that same 3.17 Hellefant pulley. It's the Hellraiser clutch pulley. And of course, that gets you the unlock. So what does that mean? Well, 2 pounds of boost gets you roughly 40 horsepower out of this deal. What I want you guys to understand here is that this is where I have a little bit of a kind of a conflict of conscience here. You guys have heard me over and over and over and over again. I never will suggest running a pulley on a Hellcat without injectors. At no point have I ever mentioned that this kit comes with injectors, which for me, living at sea level, practically scares the hell out of me because I know what, at least with the tunes that I put together and the way that I was taught to tune by Alex Pites, who's the guy when it comes to tuning these Mopars. Based on the fueling that I'm looking at, I'm going to be well outside of my injector duty cycle once 2 more pounds of boost is added to this. In fact, think of it like this. With the Hellcat, 2 pounds of boost is basically 16 to 18% more boost. That can be a problem at sea level. I would have really liked to have seen this kit come with injectors. Now, granted, yes, you can ramp up pressure in the tune. And I can show you that because while we're talking about this, I'm also going to be bringing up tuning and talking about this is what you can do if you need to make this work. But I don't necessarily recommend it. And the reason why I don't necessarily recommend it is, number one, you only have 1 pump back there. And 2, ramping up fuel pressure, even though it's going to be temporary while you're wide open throttle, is putting a lot of deadhead pressure and a lot of load on that fuel pump. And just being the fact that I literally just got through putting a pump in my car. But let me show you this, guys. Right here, this is in the tune, and this is true for whether it's a Redeye or not, 79.8 PSI. I can ramp that up to 149. Basically, it'll just be maxed out duty cycle, if it'll even manage to carry the pressure. You know, will it be able to manage it? How much voltage will it throw at it? There's some things that you can change in the tune. Basically, it's like having a booster pump in the car. That's the way that these things work, and it's run off of pulse width, which is to say it's like turning a rheostat. The more, if you want more pressure, you just turn the volume up on the thing and it makes more pressure. So if all of that is accounted for in that particular tune, then I can see what they're doing with still keeping the 650cc injectors. My only thought to that is that I don't like that idea. And the reason why I don't like that idea is because you're trying to get your pump to do something that initially it may not have necessarily been designed to do. More to the point, I would rather have the right size injector and not try to run 90 or 100 PSI of fuel pressure to make all of this thing work. So, look, Dodge is going to warrant this kit, regardless if I have a fit over it or not, in terms of how they're going about getting there. So, there's that to consider. But if it's my car and it's my thoughts that matter, I would probably maybe forego putting that pulley on the car, mainly because I'm having a hard time trusting the process here. Only because I know what kind of fueling it really does take to feed and to keep one of these cars healthy at wide open throttle. I just don't trust the factory injectors to manage that. So anyway, let me catch up with you guys and we'll get away from the stage kits and get into some of the other things that are in this catalog. Callis is asking, how about the drag pack drive shaft? Will that be available? Technically, yes, but you have to remember that the drag pack drive shaft is attached to a Turbo 400 transmission. And that is actually listed here. I'll pull that up for you here, bro. There's a lot of drag pack specific stuff in here. There you go. That's the race driveline kit. Here you go. That's this one right there. It's the one you're thinking of, I bet. So yes, technically it would be available, but not for an HP transmission. Cal saying, I guess these performance packages come down to whether or not you want to get involved with buying race gas or just switching over to E85. Well, see, that's the thing, is that they're trying to make these things work with the gasoline and not with the E85. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great start. But I fear, not that I'm the engineer that's looking over this, but as somebody that has more than a significant amount of time invested in these Gen 3 Mopars, I fear that this is a potential area of oversight. And keep in mind that these fuel pumps, they are limited in their lifespan. I've seen them already fail at 16,000, 18,000 miles. Now, granted, these cars are run at the drag strip a lot. You might say, well, what does that have to do with the fuel pump? What it has to do with the fuel pump is that when you are normally at cruise, normal fuel pressure looks like this. Hang on. I'm going to show you an air mass chart. I'm going to highlight what your cruise would be, give or take, like a tip-in cruise number. That's basically what your fuel pressure looks like just cruising around. So it's already fairly high. The air mass side is basically just how much are you into the throttle. And believe me, if you're at 1400, that's actually 1.4 grams per second, or in this case, 1400 milligrams per second of airflow. Yeah, you're going to need all the airflow or fuel flow that you can get. But if you notice that you've really got to be into the throttle before that injector duty cycle, I'm sorry, before the fuel pump duty cycle really starts to ramp up, it's really wanting to stay somewhere around 60-ish PSI, 65 PSI, which, trivia for you guys, is where the NA pumps live their entire lives. So just driving it 30% harder to 80 PSI, which, believe me, if you've got 79.8 of anything, you've got 80 of whatever it is that you're talking about. Going from 60 to 80, 33% more, or in that case, 60 to 80 would be 50% more. That's going to put a lot of wear and tear on that pump, and we are running them at wide open throttle a lot. So, get pretty good at swapping out fuel pumps in these cars. And let's see, one more question. I'm going to get back into it. X is asking, does a 309 gear on a 21 Hellcat A8 require a tune? Negative, Ghost Rider. You do not need to have a tune on that. You'll get a, I can't remember the damn code off the top of my head right now, but it'll throw a code, but it's a permanent code, not a current code. So it's not going to pop up in your, it's not going to throw a check engine light. But that being said, the car with the 309 gear will be a little bit more lazy, at least under light throttle loads, because there's just no load, or the load has been reduced with that 309 gear. I recommend a pedal commander or a pedal box along with a 309 gear to get some of that boost response, if you will. I'll put that in air quotes back. Cody's asking, would a bigger fuel pump solve that issue? No, unfortunately, it doesn't. The reason why it doesn't is because you're still deadheading a pump no matter what. So it would have to be like an 800 liter per hour pump before I believe it would make much of a difference. Even the dual pumps that are sold, this is how I know that, the dual pumps that are sold, which are a really good pump kit, Injected Engineering sells them. I believe they're called their Gasohol series. It's the one that used to cost $1,300. Good setup, good kit, even those pumps will fail. Just ask Racer X. All right, so getting back into it, guys. Next on the list, the catalog goes into Redeye cylinder heads and Redeye piston and rod kits. Let me just tell you this, guys. I'll cut to the chase. The Redeye cylinder heads apparently have a little bit better springs in them. It says, allows you to rev your Hellcat to 6,500 RPM. Tell that to the guys that have been revving Hellcats to 6,800 RPM. 68's bigger than 65. Redeye piston and rod kit. Only if you are seriously doing something crazy with that engine would you need the Redeye piston and rod kit. The reason why I say that is because the Hellcats, I've seen the Hellcats take abuse, misuse, everything you can think of, and come out the other side not even knowing that they were in a scrap. So Hellcats, they're built like a tank. They're about as aerodynamic as a barge, and they're heavy, but they will take a beating and not even know that that beating took place that would basically murk other cars. So that is going to wrap it up realistically for what is available for the Hellcat variants. In this case, the LX platform. What I want to talk about now are the NA platforms. What's out there for you NA guys? Primarily the 5.7 guys. That's all we got. So first and foremost, first and only most, this is going to be, they do offer the Hhr Stage 2 cam as an over-the-counter camshaft, but they're marketing that towards the 5.7. This is the 222, 230 cam. Sounds awfully freaking familiar, comp. Anyway, to give you guys a bit of a background on this camshaft, I'm real familiar with this camshaft. And aside from just a couple of very extremely minor differences, and I'm sure that there is a difference in the ramp rate of that lobe, in other words, the shape itself. This one's practically identical to a sniper cam. But there are some key differences that make it different and not quite as good as that cam. But that being said, it's marketed towards the 5.7s. This cam would work just fine in a 6.4, but you're not going to get any chop out of it. It'll pull better on the big end only because it's got more lift, and it'll have a little bit better mid-range. It's going to pick up power basically everywhere on a 6.4. Primarily because it's got the tighter lobe separation angle, but it's not a very aggressive cam by any stretch of the imagination. Doesn't say anything in here about needing springs or anything else like that. I would say that yes, 100%, it does need springs. I always recommend PSI 15, 16 springs with any camshaft upgrade, as well as 080 push rods. But that is it in terms of engine modifications for NA guys. So maybe on the next trip through, but it certainly is not on this trip in. Catback exhaust systems are available for the 5.7. There are a couple of them. One especially is in here for the Durango. But anyway, give you guys an idea. This is on page, probably should be doing that while I'm doing this, page 55. But there's a few exhaust options. You got the Durango. I think there's one in there for the 300. Anyway, that'll get you guys sort of up to speed as far as what I'm talking about here. Got the Challenger kit, which I know sounds good. Now then, there are some cosmetic things we can get into. Hold that thought just a second. All right. Now, there are some cosmetic things that I'm pretty excited about, especially if you've got either one of the cars. You can get the 2019 Hellcat twin snorkel hood, front fascia kits, Redeye high flow air boxes. That only works for you guys if you've got the electric power steering. If you've got a 15 or 16, you're going to need to go with a different cold air kit if you want to run that or try to get any functionality out of that 2019 hood, because your power steering pump will get in the way. But let me show you, just kind of give you an idea of what you can get. You've got the Challenger Illuminated air catcher headlamp kit. That's just the one that lights up. You can get the Hellcat front fascia kit and the fender flare kit. So that's what all that looks like. Last but not least, don't forget your Hellcat airbox. There you go. And that's all of the kits with their descriptions. So again, if you need to go back and pause, hopefully I'm getting you guys all of that in there as well. But no, you cannot use the Redeye high flow box if you've got the power steering pump. If it's electric, obviously you can, but you can't if you don't. And I would say, I was looking, to be honest with you, I was looking at my JLT. Shit, that thing might work with this hood. So I don't know that it would, don't know that it wouldn't, but everything's kind of close in that same area. Where there's a will, there's a way, and I'm sure if you wanted to fab something up, that wouldn't be hard to do at all. From there, this is something that's kind of cool. They do have all the cold air intakes, but one thing that I noticed, For you guys that are running the SRT hood, you can get the TA cold air kit to make your scoop. Instead of just basically cooling underneath the hood, you can actually have that as an intake. And it's functional. So that's what that looks like. That's what the TA uses. Pretty neat stuff. It ain't cheap, but it comes with a bunch of parts. And again, that kit is $750. Lots of cold air kits. Man, if you've got a car, I think they've got a cold air kit for you. Even into the darts. If you guys are into the darts, they've got kits for that too. And of course, all of your replacement filters, you can get that out of the catalog as well. Not trying to gloss over that, but I mean, it's really not the sexy bits of this. And then this will give you your street dream build. It gives you total costing on everything. This would, of course, just be the parts, but bring that up here so you can see it. Hopefully it focuses in. Whoa, hey. So there's what all that looks like. And that would be for your Hellcat. Again, not a whole lot for the NA guys, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but kind of is what it is. The cool thing, another neat thing, is they have these gauge pods. And what's funny too, we're about to get into the suspension side of this, but anyway, if you wanted a gauge pod, want to do like an auxiliary gauge post or anything like that, they've got the dual gauge pod there. Look at this little devil sneaking in there, all just like incognitus. Zero camber knuckle kit. What that does is it allows freaking people setting off fireworks. What it does is it mechanically moves the wheels and tires into a zero camber. They come from the factory with about 1.5 degrees of camber, if memory serves me correctly. This brings them back up so that when the car launches, the tires stay more square to the ground than if they are out like this. Now, believe it or not, that is actually pretty trick for the street, really more than the drag strip. And you might go, why is that? Well, depending on your power level, and this is debatable, but you got some guys running like mid-9s without any suspension adjustment back there, with no issues running Hhr DBRs and the like type of tires, the more modern slick radial type tires. So what does this do? Well, what this does is for your street setup, it squares your street setup a little bit better on the ground so that it hooks a little bit better with your drag radials that you're running, presumably with the Hellcats. Or if you've got a Scat Pack, what this would allow you to do is it would allow you to run your car on drag radials, have it hook a little bit better on the street, and maybe get rid of some of the wheel hop. Because what happens with the cars is that as that suspension travel moves, you get a little bit of deformity, especially on the inside face of the contact patch. There's just more pressure there. So this can help with that. I know that Speedy's Garage did a test where he zeroed out his alignment in the rear. He seemed to like it quite a bit, but it's, again, primarily going to help you on the street. Again, your tire compound and your track prep, that's going to be the Wonder Twin powers that get the car to hook at the strip. In this particular situation, though, I like it. I like the idea. I am going to throw one warning out there for you guys. If you're thinking about going with the zero camber rear knuckles, I would highly recommend having this installed or at least aligned at your Dodge dealership. You don't want to take it to Frank's Auto Alignment Shop if the kid that's working the thing doesn't pay attention and he looks at your car and looks at what the factory specs are supposed to be, and he tries to set this thing to the factory specs, it can end up just basically negating what you just tried to do with the knuckles. I don't know how much you could actually bring the thing back out to negative camber. I'm sure there's an amount, but I would definitely take it to the Dodge dealership and say, hey, look, I got the zero camber rear knuckles. I just need to get the car aligned to get that 0 or maybe negative half a degree built into the rear suspension so that the car hooks up a little bit. Neat part, very cool kit. And guys, look, for $700, I know it sounds like a lot of money, but you're getting a lot for the $700. This is actually not a bad deal at all. And I get it. Before you even say it, I already know what you're going to say. There are other alternatives and other ways to do this. I know. But the thing is that you can do this with these knuckles, and that's a pretty trick piece. Now, in this also, what you'll find is you'll find strut tower braces for practically everything. LX platforms, any sway bars. LX platforms are very well, there you go with that, very well represented. So there's some chassis braces for you should you feel like you need them. If you guys like to carve corners. Now, here we get into the suspension lowering kits and super track pack suspension kits. This is for you guys that, well, one of the imports just buzzed us. That was pretty sweet. This is really for you guys that that are wanting a little bit more of a sporty ride out of the car. You don't have the higher end suspension that comes with the factory. So anyway, let me show you these guys. You got Super Track Pack Stage 2 and a suspension lowering kit. If y'all are interested in it, that's what those look like as well. 5.7 guys probably be able to take a little bit more advantage of that, maybe, than the 6.2. Probably wouldn't mess with that. Maybe the springs. Bring the car down just a little bit for all of them. And again, we get into strut tire braces. Let's see. SRT4 adjustable control arms. You're going to start to get into some more obscure things, and then you get into more of the legacy stuff with the and primarily a lot of Gen 2 Hemi stuff. Hang on, let me get back over here. Here's one. Intake manifold for big block. This is for the RB guys, 413, 426, and 440s. The price on this is $73. I don't think that part right there is actually $73, but hey, who knows? It's a smoking deal if it is. But anyway, that's going to be more of the legacy stuff than anything else. So you're going to get into some of the, distributor caps, plug wires, just general je ne sais quoi, chelcachos type things. You got like 426 aluminum cylinder heads. Some of the cooler stuff for the old schoolers in there. Not a whole lot for you RB big block guys, or the B block, the 383 guys. But that being said, a couple of cool things. Got some subframe connectors in here, different leaf springs. What I'm not noticing is a rear spring or a rear leaf spring relocator for the darts. Maybe that'll come later. Anyway, that wraps up your kind of a tour, without calling it a tour, but your tour of the direct connection catalog. A lot of cool things for your Gen 3 guys, especially obviously if you're into the Hellcat platforms. I have some reservations with the actual Hellcat kits, not so much with the Redeye, but with the Hellcat kit in general. You put a pulley on a Hellcat, especially down here, low sea level areas, you're probably going to want to look at a set of injectors for that thing. And again, I understand, and I can show you the tables that you would be changing under fuel system. you pull these back up for you in a tune. This will show wide open throttle and normal settings for that fuel pump. That's all fine and good, but my only main issue here is that once you start getting into this, I think you're going to find out pretty quickly that you're going to have to ramp up fuel pressure quite a bit, by at least 15%, to be able to cover the needs of the fuel system, which is going to mean that you don't just change the fuel pressure also, you also have to go into your fuel side on the engine side, and you're going to have to change, I'll show you, injector pulse width over versus fuel mass. This is going to be just one of the tables, but all of those would need to be changed as well. So in knowing that, obviously the calibration engineer knows how to do all of that. That's what they do. They engineer the calibrations to work. But again, even with all that being changed, I still have reservations about having the stock injectors on the car. I'd far and away rather have a larger injector, not work the pump as hard, and have some overhead just in case there's a fuel yip situation. In other words, you launch the car really hard with not a lot of fuel in the tank. It's something that happens primarily at the drag strip, but I have had it happen on long, wide open throttle hits. Now, with that being said, Dodge is going to warrant this. So apparently they feel strongly enough about the kits themselves to make this work. Also, I will admit to one thing. I'm coming to this from more of a tuning point of view, but it's not to say that my way of doing things is the absolute best way it is. But look at it like this. The factory fueling in a Hellcat and the factory fueling in the Redeye, the Demon, is all the exact same. The fuel air ratio that is commanding is the same all the way across the board, which is to say that it's lean. Still haven't figured that out. Anyway, a lot more lean than you might anticipate. In fact, it's 12.7 air fuel ratio. It looks like an NA fuel air ratio tune from a fueling point of view. As a matter of fact, they actually tuned the NA cars for richer than that. Anyway, I digress. The point that I'm making here is if you were to leave the fuel air ratio commanded alone, which you could definitely do, then you would probably, although there are some conditions where you might not, but you would still be somewhat close to not going way over 100%, like 104, 105, 108% over on the injector duty cycle. I mean, I guess that's one way to do it, although you do have to take into account, catalytic converter overtemp protection, where it goes real rich. What provisions are they going to have in there for that? If you're not going to allow for a larger injector, which the kits don't come with, how do you then account for the fuel and then account for catalytic converter overtemp protection? See, that's the other side of it. If I'm commanding, for example, 0.80 lambda, basically it's 1175 air fuel ratio. Well, that's all fine and good. I fall within the parameters of what the injector can manage. It's basically a full point richer. But if I take that number and I still have not made any changes to catalytic converter overtemp protection, either in temperature or in the allowed amount of fuel that goes in. God, I'm sounding like a freaking nerd right now. Anyway, for the amount of fuel that you're going to be adding to it, then you're going to go way above what those injectors are going to be able to allow for, given what fueling that you're working with. Anyway, long story short, just going off of my own experience, and I'm sharing all of this with you because what I'm seeing in the offerings, although it's amazing stuff, and I'm super stoked that they're doing it. I mean, for a first time at it type of point of reference, not too shabby. But I question the Hellcat stuff only because I have so much data on Hellcats in general. So there's that. Anyway, bummer about the NA guys. Again, we saw this coming. Not to be that guy, but I mean, I was saying that, look, be surprised at the absolute best if you get anything for the NA guys. I'm glad to see that Comp was able to throw the Comp Stage 2, the HHR cam in there. Basically, it's a Comp Stage 2. It's a good cam. Real familiar with it, and works well for both 5.7 and 6.4. But you do need springs, in my opinion. You also need push rods, in my opinion. That is not listed on there. And it's also not listed as any kit form. So that means it is a tuner-only kit, which means that if you buy the part, you have to get it installed somewhere and have somebody else tune your car. So, I mean, it still falls under the direct connection banner. It still is a hot rod part for your hot rod Mopar, but that's not going to be one that they're going to be supporting through the power broker dealers at all, it looks like. So if you got a Hellcat variant, you're in shape. If you've got an NA car, well, you're not really getting anything, frankly. And if you got a 6.4, forget about it. They didn't even think about you in all of this. Also, conspicuously absent from any of this is any gearing differences. No 331, no 327 rear end, no mention of 370 rear ends, which would be aggressive to say the least, but still doable for a 5.7 or 6.4 for that matter. So if there's any criticism on my part, you know exactly where it's going to go. It's going to go directly in front of the NA guys. Basically, that would be me primarily taking a direct connection to task and saying, great, we got stuff for the boosted guys. That's real easy stuff to do. That's, again, very low-hanging fruit. Let's get these NA guys taken care of. I'll say this. I don't know that I'll be able to see that coming, and I'll tell you why. To get 30, 40, 50, 60 horsepower out of a boosted car, especially the 6.2, is extremely easy. Not only from a engineering standpoint, not only from a programming point of view, but it's really easy on the labor side. None of the things that they're talking about doing to the car itself, about the most involved you're going to get is putting the pulley on. That's not going to take any more than about 3 hours or so of labor. And anything that you would do camshaft wise, that's going to be a lot of hours worth of labor. Now, they were mentioning cylinder heads and pistons and rods and things like that. That is not being sold in as a kit. That's really more a tuner kit. In other words, that's going to be something that you buy and somebody else installs. They are not looking at having anybody doing cylinder heads, not on flag hours, out of a service bay, for example. But that being said, they will do, again, the pulley swaps for you, and it doesn't take that long, and you're in and you're out, bam, bam, and you're done. To give you an idea, a camshaft swap in a car that has an automatic, so has the MDS system, that's going to easily get you into the 18 to 20 hour range. And that means that car is going to be in that bay for a week and not generating a ton of income for that bay. So when you look at it from that point of view, I just think that they figured they would price themselves completely out of the stratosphere if they started trying to offer cam swaps at the dealership. Besides, don't know if they would have been able to get those cams EPA approved. And by the way, for any of you guys that are wondering, yes, these are all 50 state legal kits for the supercharged stuff. Also for the upgrades, if you want to run the cold air kits or anything like that, unless said otherwise, they're all 50 state legal. And you'll see this little blurb right here where it'll say 50 state legal. That means that it is good to go no matter what. A lot of these are just replacement parts in general. So, but let me catch up with you guys real quickly. Bear with me. Hang on just a second, guys. I'll be right back. Got to take care of one thing. Hold, please. Talk amongst yourselves. Hang on. Hang on. Didn't want to do that. All right, now I'm back. Okay. So let me catch up with you guys real quickly. Cody said, I think Dodge secretly met with Toyota to help build the 6.2 because it can handle so much abuse. Man, I'm telling you guys, after being around not only these, but other makes of manufacturers, I have never seen anything take the abuse that a 6.2 will at all. Chuck saying his 2020 RT shaker is all set for air intake. Oh yeah, that shaker setup is my favorite of all of them, honestly. Shaker's good. Shaker's really good. Okay, saying, hey, showing the Dart some love. That's true. Boosted saying he's running his rear camber at -5, -0.5, which is to say instead of his being straight up and down, his is actually out a little bit. So when it squats and compresses, it's more straight up and down. So I was asking, was there anything for the 09 to 12 RT? Let's see. Suspension wise, yeah, I believe the suspension kits will work for that. They should. It's the same platform, basically. It's real herky-jerky. Let's see. All of the exhaust is later than that. Let's see. There might be some things here. 2008 to 2010, 5761 Challenger. There's a cold air kit. There's actually a cold air intake kit, speaking of which, for the 08 Plus Dodge Challenger 5764 with shaker hood, which is that. There's just some more hot rod parts. There's that kit right there. But yeah, there are some parts in there for the earlier cars, mainly in the air kits and the, let's see. Let me look at the suspension. There's a lot of cold air kits, guys, like a whole lot. There's the Dart kit. Let's see. The non-SRT stuff, the suspension is 11 to 21 for the Stage 2, and for the lowering springs, it's 2008 to 21, which is kind of what I figured. For the Charger, should be Challenger in there as well, and the 06 to 21 300. So yes, they do have some stuff for the older vehicles in here. So saying just got a 3.92 gear for the car a while back. That'll make it violent for sure. Stocking up on parts for next year. I like it. Chuck saying because of the labor shortage, my local performance shop told me to allow at least a month for a cam swap. That isn't necessarily outside of the normal range, if I'm being honest. Let's see. Oh, it's asking what happened to the aluminum 426 in the 2015 drag pack. Not offering that. One of the things that kind of threw me for a loop, funny you should ask that, was that they didn't offer that. Now, the thing that I do know about those blocks, there's an off-road guy that bought up like 6 or 8 of those 427 rotating assemblies and has been putting them in Jeeps, primarily in fairly modified Jeeps, rock bouncer type platforms. But yeah, I know it's kind of crazy. The only drag pack combination that they offered, pull it back up here. If I can bring it back up here, good Lord. It's one of those things where you're scrolling through and it just goes, and it just, everything flies right past you. Again, lots of Hellcat specific guys, like just a ton of the Hellcat. There we go. Yeah, the 354 is the only one that is being offered on the drag pack side. And again, you can build your drag pack with a 6.4, with a 6.2. As a matter of fact, one of the breakdowns in here, we're talking about just how in depth this thing is. It breaks down the performance if you want like a 9.0 capable, which I guess that is going to include the 6.2 crate engine. Remember that the Challenger Dream street build, they also have a strip. Strip build with a 6.2 is 88 grand. A strip with the 354 is 148,000. And that's what that looks like right there. So I'll bring that a little bit closer. Hopefully it focuses out for you, but that's how that ends up looking. Oop, there you go. So, but yes, unfortunately, nothing, and I mean nothing, on the 426. Which is weird, especially when you consider that the Elephant is listed. No problem listing the 426 supercharged crate Hemi. 6,800 RPM, peak RPM, by the way, out of the 426. Here's the funny things. Camshaft, nodular iron camshaft, valve duration at 0.15 millimeters. And it doesn't give you any of the specs on the cam. It's pretty funny. Just, they don't give you any of those specifications. Oop, hang on. Things have gotten weird here. Timeout. Well, what did I just do here? Timeout. Let me get out of that. Bring that back up. While I'm dragging this back up, let me check in with you guys, make sure this is going to load properly, and it did. Okay. Oh, wait. Hang on a second. Roy, thank you very much. Roy's saying, my shaker scoop is in the way for having a shock tower brace or a Monte Carlo bar. Yeah, the thing is that they actually, the cars come with that brace that goes across the front of the car is actually pretty good. It wouldn't be much to fabricate a brace for the brace, but I don't think that it would really do you a whole lot of good. I would definitely say that the car is perfectly fine the way that it is. If you want a little bit more stability, you can always put the rear shock tower brace in the car. I've known guys that have done that. They said it does stiffen it up a little bit. I haven't done it to mine, but I'll take their word for it. But thank you very much for the contribution, buddy. It's very, very cool. Thank you. Yeah, and they never did put anything together for the, let me look at something, see if Dodge found a solution for that. bear with me. That's one thing I haven't looked at. Yeah, not available with, or not, yeah, all of these are Note 4 shakers. Let's see. Oh, that is so weird. Yeah, you can always do the rear, though. That will help. Yeah, and I don't think the regular, I don't think any of these will work with your application, unfortunately. They do have braces for SRT4s, though, and they look good. That's these right here. If you've never seen one, that's those bad boys right there. I remember those from back in the day. I miss the SRT4 stuff. But again, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Philip's asking, do you think the rear knuckle kit would be a cheaper alternative to all the Angles design drag kit? Looking to upgrade the rear suspension of my 18 wide body Hellcat. Yeah, I think it's a good alternative just in general. What you're doing is you're basically modifying the rear end to just be a zero adjustment at a center adjustment setting. So I think it would be better in that respect, but I don't like the, okay, so the kit that you're talking about is the fully adjustable trailing arms, camber arms, and drag link. Yeah, it's a better alternative to that because you can still retain all your factory parts and use the knuckle. There is no power setting that you're going to find yourself at with these cars that the factory pieces hasn't done a good job working with. In other words, we're running mid-9s with factory suspension components. And when I mean factory down to factory alignment. So I don't want you to think that this is a mandatory modification, but it will help the car work a lot better on the street, in my experience at least. Now, I'm going to tell you one other thing. Your aftermarket drag links, I like the BMRs, by the way, the trailing arms anyway. They're very inexpensive and unimaginably easy to install, but that's beside the point. The issue that you're going to run into with aftermarket kits when it comes to the suspension of these things is that they're noisy. The one that I didn't like the most was the Spawn kit that I installed. If you go back, you'll see the how-to kit. You know, I give you some tips and tricks on how that thing actually came together. But I do want to tell you this: they click and clack like you would not believe. And I went the extra step to get bolts that were longer, so I could get a longer shank. And I cut them so that when I put everything together, there was less clearance between the actual bolt and the sleeve on that Spawn kit. So I'm telling you, if the more you can keep the factory suspension on these cars, the better, because the clicking and clacking coming from the back of the thing, it's real old, real quick. Trust me on that. Derek's asking if there's any Trackhawk parts. Bro, I didn't see anything for the Trackhawk. I went digging around here earlier. I'm wondering if the kits themselves will work. I know right now the calibrations are really only for the LX platform, unfortunately. But right now, I'm just not seeing anything for the Durango, and suspiciously and conspicuously missing from the party here is anything for the trucks. That's a bummer in and of itself. So yeah, kind of missing some things. Trackhawk Durango also was not included in this catalog. Again, not to say that those parts are not under development or that the calibrations for the stage kits aren't also being calibrated at some point for those trucks. I will say this though. One thing you have to remember when you're talking about the Durango or for the Trackhawk, they're a lot heavier. When I say a lot heavier, they're 1,000 pounds heavier than the Challenger. So when your Garden Variety Challenger Hellcat weighs 4,500 pounds, the Durango weighs what? 5,500 pounds, 5,600 pounds. Trackhawk's 5,400 pounds, I believe. You're asking a lot of 93 octane to be able to work with mass like that, to overcome that level of inertia. That's tough. That's real tough. So what I would challenge Dodge to do in this case is, if they're not going to offer stage kits for the TRX, Durango, Trackhawk, maybe give a reason for that. Maybe give an explanation for that. This is where going back to the roots of direct connection could really come into play for you. Explain the why behind the result. In other words, yes, we can throw more power at the Challenger and Charger because they weigh significantly less. When you start talking about the TRX, which is the heaviest of the group at 6,500 pounds, the Durango and the Trackhawk, both at, as near as it doesn't make a difference, 5,500 pounds, we can't throw more power at those things and still give you a factory warranty because the loads are so high on those vehicles already. They are far and away testing the limits of what pump gas can do, yada, yada. Put together something that goes along those lines and educate people along the way. This is where the education portion of the old school direct connection catalogs and the guy, again, like we were talking about in the last live show, the guy across the counter, be like you talking to me across the counter. Look, this is my experience. This is what works. Don't mess with that. You'll have a bad time. Go this direction, stick with the recipe, and you'll be doing great. That's kind of what you're going to need to be, you're hoping anyway, is going to come with direct connection. I'm not seeing so much of that in here. I mean, there's a little bit, but it's focusing a lot on drag pack packages. And like there's a chunk, the first whole portion of this is engines, then it goes directly into drag pack. And that's great, but let me just put it to you this way. So what's neat is, how to build a 13-second bracket race car, how to build a 10-second, right? Well, the problem is that 10-second car, guess what? It's all, and I mean all, you scroll this down a little bit. That's great, but that whole car is nothing but Hellcat derived stuff. That guy over there, old school, yeah, it's a slower car. It's a 13-second car, but it gives shift points. Like, where are you shifting the car? This is a 1326 at 106 miles an hour or whatever it was. 105 miles an hour. It's it's giving you a little bit more insight. Whereas this deal with Leah Pritchett, it's just, you put these parts and it gives you the part number, even tells you what page to go to get the part number. But it's missing some of that education. It's missing some of the how-to more than anything else. Now, I 100% understand that that's a little bit difficult to do, especially nowadays, because people aren't doing their own tune-ups per se. In other words, you're not out there twisting a distributor, rejetting your carburetors or anything like that. I get it. That's how these things used to work back in the day. And that's why the guy across the counter was so valuable. Now it's a program engineer putting your stage kits together, and you basically, it's kind of like a set it and forget it type of a thing. I know a lot of guys want to be a little bit more involved with their cars, but unfortunately, these cars really don't allow for much more involvement. In some cases, that's not necessarily a bad thing, trust me. In fact, you're getting a lot of tinkerability just by them giving you what in essence is kind of a modern, what is in essence basically a modern a Trinity type of a setup. Again, I like the idea of the Dodge 1320 Club. I think that's kind of neat. If you want the livery, I guess you can get that. Can you get it? I don't know. I don't know if you can even get the livery. It's $5,500. That's kind of a lot for stickers. But anyway, some things about Sportsman Racing, but the main idea is that they're giving you options. More to the point, they're giving you access to the parts bin. And to give you access to the parts bin in a lot of ways, for a lot of guys, is a lot more valuable than just some of the what I would call education to go along with it. That's going to come in time, but the aftermarket, especially those of us that have been into this and been in the know for a while, we kind of already know what we're out here looking for. And we don't mind spending the money to get the quality parts as long as there's going to be a result. So which parts out of all of this catalog do I personally recommend? Well, both of the stage kits for the Hellcat and for the Redeye, even with all of my criticism for the Hellcat stage kit, if they're going to install that for you basically at the dealership, and it doesn't really cost a lot, especially when you start looking at the costs of how much power you get versus what you would spend in the aftermarket, you get a warranty to go along with that. Not too shabby. So I recommend both of those. Again, I have my own reservations, and I call them reservations. You could probably arguably and probably safely call them hang-ups when it comes to the Hellcat platform. I get it, and I'll own that. But again, that's just my own experience coming into play here and kind of jumping out there. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, that's not going to work. I already know about it. I already know how this stuff works. I know how that sausage gets made. Anyway, they want to warrant it. It's their calibration. Let her rip. What about the converter, the torque converter? I'm a little bit on the fence with that, mainly because my car, gear for gear, will run with a Redeye out of the hole without really a whole lot of calibration changes. So I think a lot of the performance gain is in the supercharger more than it is anything else, in this case, the torque converter and the gear, the 309 gear. So without ever going toe-to-toe with a 262 car, with my car with a 262, I don't know, but I can tell you that I will absolutely out 60-foot a Redeye with a 262 gear. So is the torque converter worth it? I don't know. Tough to say. The drive shaft, though, the half shafts, I'm still running stock half shafts. Unless you are tickling nines, I don't think you need a different set of half shafts. If it makes you feel better to buy a drive shaft, which I know for a lot of you guys, it does. Okay, well, if you're going to get a drive shaft for your car, I would first, second, and third suggest getting the Redeye Driveshaft. It is the absolute smoothest drive shaft you can buy for your car. You can drive the car at 100 miles an hour across the desert. You would never know that you're even moving more than 30. You can launch it as hard as you want, drive the car as hard as you want. The drive shaft's not going to go anywhere, and it will always be extremely smooth. Now, people worry about the center joint. Look, if in 100,000 miles or in 1,200 passes that thing fails and you need to get a new drive shaft, just as good. Doesn't matter, it's that good, and I would save up the money to get the Redeye drive shaft over anything from the aftermarket. Again, the 41 spline half shafts, do you need them? If you're running nines, go ahead and buy them. Yeah, they're $1,500, but look, there are a lot of demons out there running around, and they break rear ends before they break half shafts. Just saying. Now, the rear diff assembly, it's a brute, but so is the Scat Pack rear end, and a lot of guys are running deep into the nines with that kit. So, getting into the cylinder heads and the rotating assembly, man, look, if you're that deep into your engine, Let me tell you something. There's a lot easier ways to be able to make those heads spin to, what RPM they say, 6,500 RPM. Like, again, there's guys spinning the stock Hellcats to 6,800 RPM, like a lot. I know guys that have spun them to 7 and have had no real issues with the stock cam. You know, is there a head flow difference? They're not saying that there is. I don't know that there is. In fact, I'm positive there's not a difference. It's just a spring pack kit, more than likely. Not really sure what else is going on. I'm looking at the kit in general. I'm not seeing any tie bars or collars or anything like that being shown. Strangely enough, that's also one thing that is not in the catalog, now that I mention it. The tie bars for the Eagle heads are not listed in here. Interesting. Maybe we'll see those pop up again. Maybe not. Not really sure. But they are not included in this. And you would think that they would. And the only area that they have anything mentioning about cylinder heads, somebody's having fun. It's kind of a muggy night tonight. The funny thing is that there's still a lot of folks out there making hits. But yeah, anyway, yeah, no, there's no mention of the tie bars either. So if you're wondering if they did have the drag pack tie bars, which all it is it ties the two shafts, the two rocker shafts together to help with deflection if you're running, you know, big RPM, big lift, lots of spring pressure, or all of the above. I always suggest, recommend the stand key tie bars and collars. Tie bars, again, tie the shafts together. The collars keep the rocker from scooting around too much. Back in the day, the Gen 2 Hemis had a spring that would kind of locate the rocker. The rocker's got a real weird geometry. Like, from your point of view, it pushes it like, that's kind of goofy. Anyway, long story short, on a shaft rocker style, what you do is you set your collar on the shaft, give it 5 thousandths worth of clearance, and that's it. If the thing moves around a little bit, it'll just bump the collar and, not get too far off the center. And yeah, that's the only other thing I can think of. But anyway, let me get back to you guys. So I was asking, when would be a good time to drop my car off in Texas so there's decent weather? Man, this is Texas. You get crazy weather all the time. But just give Justin a shout, and he'll be able to straighten you out and get you set up with transport, whatever you need. And again, Roy, thanks again, bud. I know saying they make a brace for the shaker. I'm sure they do. I just don't know which one it is. Maybe Speed Logics has one. My Knuckles saying it's in the catalog. Is it? Maybe I missed it. Let's find out. Hold, please. I want to make sure I'll give you a part number, actually, if I can find it. Strut tower brace front, not compatible with vehicles with shaker. Let's see. Strut tower brace rear, that will work no matter what you've got. Oh yeah, duh, I'm looking at it right here. Strut tower brace front, part number P51600082AB. And there you go. I will hold that up there. If it had been a snake, it would have bit me. Hopefully that helps, though. Going away in 3, 2, 1. So yeah, if you need to get back there, but if you've already gone and got your pin, again, it's part number P51600082 Alpha Bravo. So P51600082AB. Your 14 to 21 Dodge Challenger 5764 with shaker hood, no warranty, sold as is, but it does have the kit, the hardware kit to go along with it. Thank you for clarifying that, man. I literally, looking literally right at it. That's funny. Oh, when it goes from the shock tower wall to the fire, it's in the catalog. Yes, it is. Cody's saying the Dart is the closest we'll ever get to a modern day SRT4. That is true. Oh, White Knuckle saying top of page 79. Yes, it is. Chuck's saying, I think the catalog will grow. Oh, it'll definitely grow. Roy's saying, thanks, B. You got it. Chuck's saying, maybe there's not as much demand to build the Durangos. Yeah, there's a lot of demand to build Trackhawks, so not sure. Oh, Callis is talking about the nose cone and the Superbird. Yeah, that is an aftermarket thing. I don't know that they would be able to sell it. Oh, Chuck said, I didn't know it'd normally take 4 to 5 weeks to do a cam swap. I thought it was lack of technicians. It probably is. It could be lack of experienced technicians, but depending on how busy the shop is, just to get a lift available. I know that with us, it was not uncommon at all. You get your deposit, get the parts in on the first of the month through like the first week. Lift should open up within the next 2 weeks. Have your car on the lift, and depending on how the swap was going to go, drop the cradle and swap everything out on the floor, then bring everything, basically drop everything back down and get it all bolted back together. You can do it without doing that, but I know that the techs like to have everything split apart so they can get to everything very easily. Cal's asking, are the tie bars only for the 392? No, actually, Stankey has specific tie bars for the 5.7s and for the 6.2/6.4 guys. And Coda's saying, I wish Ford did the same thing for most of their cars. They used to. Back in the day, the Ford Racing Performance Parts catalog was really good at being an educator. I just don't have any of the older catalogs, like I say older, 20 years old catalogs. They were really good at, you could go into the things and just look at, it would give explanations like why they don't offer certain parts. Like we don't offer cold air kits because we've seen where cold air kits can actually lose power. Things like that. There's not a lot of that going on with this catalog, but I'm sure it's coming. And I know that, and it's a bit of a bummer, but the Power Broker announcement has been pushed back. I understand. Okay, fine. But in terms of training and everything else, there's not a lot of reciprocation just yet with even the dealerships that are going to be Power Brokers. You get the impression that there's not a lot of back and forth with the teams that would give them direction and Dodge corporate. So even though we're able to get our hands on the catalog, and again, this is actually not the final version, I don't believe, of the catalog. I think there still has to be some proofreading and some things to get changed around a little bit. I did get with my local Power Broker, discuss some of this with him, and hopefully he's going to take some of what I had talked to him about and take that to make people that make decisions and get this stuff figured out. Hopefully we can start getting answers is the whole point of that. So say if they offer 6.1 heads, I'd be pretty interested in them for the 5.7. I think they do pretty well. Seeing some people run them, I don't know why, unless it ups compression. It wouldn't be worth it. I mean, if you've got Eagle heads, you run Eagle heads. 5.7 heads have slightly smaller chambers, but the 6.1 heads are really good heads. That's the problem with the 6.1 head is that the Eagle heads exist, but the 6.1 head is really good. They flow about 250, 260 CFM, give or take. Really a good street head. And they work really well on the street from a velocity standpoint, especially with the 6.1 or a 5.7 intake manifold. They just really work well on the street. You can eke power out of anything, don't get me wrong, but the 6.1 taxes the cylinder heads a little bit more, meaning that you've got more velocity running through those 6.1's cylinder head ports. If you've never driven a 6.1, you're losing out a little bit. The 6.1 is a fun car to drive. They're torquey, and they're a bit more of an old school flavor. And to give you an idea, I had Foxy out today, and you can drive the 392, and the 392 revs out better, makes better mid-range torque, bottom end, and it's a bigger engine. There's a lot of going on there, but the 6.1 will remind you of a really well-sorted Fox body driving the thing around in terms of power delivery. Lots of fun to drive. Roy's saying, thank you very much. I've got it. Very cool. Zephyr's checking in. It has been a long time, saying, Professor Mason, got the fist bump, saying it's been a while. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Same to you, my friend. So, guys, I'm hoping I was able to get y'all some info, bring y'all a little bit into the fold as far as how this catalog has come together for us. I'm not going to lie, a little bit bummed that we didn't see anything more for the NA guys. We do have the crate engines available. 6.4 is in there, 392. 345 crate engine is in there. Obviously, the Hellcat variants are all in there, but no hot rod goodies for the NA guys. One other thing. So not only are there no hot rod goodies in here for the NA guys, what I would really like to have seen is, and I get that maybe this does or doesn't, but it really does belong in the direct connection catalog. 6.4 and 6.1 and Hellcat exhaust manifolds for the 5.7. Something for the trucks, something for the SUVs, anything that we can, start to look at in terms of performance for those guys. But primarily, the 5.7 needs some help. And the odd thing about it was they offer a camshaft that really does kind of need long tube headers. And it really does need, or at least the shorties off of the Hellcat. And it also really needs the tuning capabilities. So again, kind of a weird thing, but, who am I to judge on that? There are engine kits and all kinds of neat things for swaps. That's really cool that they're working with the customers that want to do the swaps. I get the whole drag pack thing. That's great. But I think the reality is that the NA guys were left a little bit high and dry for the introduction. Hopefully that will change for upcoming variants of the catalog. So saying also, Merry Christmas. I know it's late. Hope you had a good one. I did. And I hope you had a good one too, my friend. And guys, with that, we are coming up on 2 hours. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for hanging out with me. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. And with that, love each and every one of you guys. Would not do this without you. Thank y'all so much for supporting the channel. It means everything in the world to me. Keeps me doing all of the fun stuff that I get to do for you guys. If you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep her shiny side up. Do something cool for somebody. Ray, miss and love you, brother. And with that, Merry Christmas. And we will catch you guys on the next one. That is a wrap. Adios.